Well, I went on YouTube today to see that I actually got comments and new subscribers and actual views on YouTube. So I'm kind of like amped on that. Not like really amped, but I'm appreciative of it. I'm like, yeah, man, things grow. So I want to thank everybody who's like subscribed or commented. And then I don't really have as much access to my YouTube for a lot of reasons as I want to. So therefore, I haven't replied to comments. But Leah does have more access and probably will reply to comments. I don't reply to comments, but Leah will reply to comments because she has, her own device in which she can access the YouTube and has the password and all that shit. So, I do everything on Facebook first and then I transfer it to Live because Facebook is where the majority of my, friends are. So, my virtual friends are. So I utilize Facebook mostly and then I fucking transfer it to YouTube. Um, Intellectual is what I wanted to say. I get an intellectual reward from my engagement. It's not an emotional reward. I don't need emotional structure. I mean, stroking. All I, you know, what I'm saying, I do. I want authentic visibility, so therefore, I want to, my actual intellect to be authentically viewed, or become authentically visible. So therefore, I articulate my views as best as I can in order to attain that authentic intellectual visibility, not emotional visibility. And there's nothing authentic about emotional visibility. Leah's gone. I smoke a lot of all kinds of things. Tobacco, sage is not weed, and then if it's not tobacco, and then weed, of course. So Leah's put me on kind of on a weed diet, I guess, where I can smoke every other day, you know, unless I go out and buy an ounce, and then that's not always a good thing because I'll just go through that ounce like in a hot second. But and see, that's the thing about addiction. This idea of addiction in relationship to mouse brains, and that all of our ideas come from how drugs interact with mouse brains, and then we built that up to human brains, and then taking it back down to mouse brains and realize some of the things that we thought about mouse brains really had to do with condition, didn't actually have to do with physiology. That we were creating an environment in which addiction would foster. And if you create an environment in which addiction doesn't foster, addiction doesn't, and there's a managing of substance abuse. If that's not, if it's not, if it's just, if you can change the environment or the circumstances of the condition, it changes the use of, of drugs overall. We don't utilize that in our 10 step, our 12 step programs because, you know, it would be more viable, and then it would set a precedence or precedence for arguments towards across the board legalization of narcotics. That all narcotics need to be legalized, and that individuals who choose to engage in particular narcotics have access to cleaner versions of it, and then have access, and then the money derived from it can be put directly into preventative measures and drug, like we do with alcohol. You know, the same thing we do with alcohol, and like the same thing will be eventually, like what's done with tobacco, and eventually will be done with marijuana. There'll be certain levels of standards set for the marijuana industry in relationship to who can engage and who cannot engage, and why those who engage should take stock in their engagement. And if they choose to disengage in use, there are programs available for them that have funding for them to disengage use for it as having a destructive effect upon their life. Because addiction affects, or drugs affect people differently. I mean, that's everything from fucking pharmaceutical drugs to fucking, street drugs. They have a different effect on every physiology. So you can't go abroad across you can't, determine across the board who can and who cannot utilize certain chemicals or certain yeah, you know, drugs. That has to be determined by, more scientific method and some more scientific study. And the war against drugs, the prohibition against drugs, has not stopped the use of drugs. One drug in particular might stop being used as frequently as another, but then another drug takes its place, and that's just accessibility. That has absolutely nothing to really do about the drug. But then again, drug cultures do change based upon accessibility, and people who are on a drug, like crack, or base cocaine. People are getting off of base cocaine because the availability of it is no longer there. So people are finding different methods in order to either replace base cocaine or getting off of it altogether because it's not viable anymore. In certain major areas, what I'm saying, Los Angeles, fucking New York. But if you live in some tuck town in which cocaine is available on the East Coast and still at a reasonable price, then yeah, you're probably smoking your ass off. So, but that again, that's not going to stop people from using base cocaine. Preventative messages are measures, reasonable preventative measures in which actual factual information is being shared about the effects of using certain chemicals, not like fucking, reefer madness or some shit like that, where it's all about, propaganda and not about actually educating the populace. So, kind of things that I talk about, but, at the end of the day, I just kind of wanted to thank people for commenting, and when I can comment on, when I can respond to your comment, I surely will, and at least within relationship to my further fucking recordings and so forth and broadcasts and so on. But yeah, one of them was kind of interesting, and I appreciated it in relationship to my post on atheism, which I guess, and I guess the way that you fucking label this shit or title this shit has something to do with the way in which it's actually viewed. And then again, I put on a fucking million I got like 155 fucking different videos on here, on YouTube and so forth. And then, some upward of 200 plus here on fucking Facebook, live and otherwise. It just, again, I'm repetitive. I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but I'm saying it within different epochs, of a larger epistemology that, how it applies to different sciences or different fields of study or different philosophical viewpoints. That it is truly a universal viewpoint that the Christgnostic Institute is based upon, or Christgnosticism itself is based upon, is a universal epistemology that actually speaks to the best of its creator's ability in relationship to the total epistemological information, or the entire epistemology of information that man has gathered to this point. Now, of course, I'm just one person, and of course, I could use a pretty good research staff and all that other good shit. And I've got researchers, and I've got my wife, and eventually an expanded staff when I have the money to afford a staff and all that other good stuff. But this is the basis of our viewpoint, basis of our philosophy. I guess you can call it theology too, because there is a study of God, so to speak, or a theist associated with it to some degree. The North American tradition of Islam is the primary thesis, or Gnosticism, or Black Gnosticism could be considered the basis of its philosophical information. Coptic Islam, it can also be utilized as a concept name in relationship to the overall philosophy that is derived. Theology is derived from. So, because you can see comparisons between it and the Gnostic philosophies And again, Gnostic philosophies are not universal either. Even the word Gnostic is a modern term used to describe religions of antiquity that preceded Christianity. Or in the Western academic model, it's presented as something that derived from Christianity, but that doesn't make any fucking sense. Only if you're trying to promote this Christian Judeo historical perception, and that because you can see the Gnostic religion, the Hellenized versions of it, going back to Alexander in Alexandria, and that the basis of the Hellenization of Gnosticism, or the External Coptic Islamic community, as I call it, was being compromised and being turned into this more easily socially acceptable form of the science of Gnosticism, or what we refer to Gnosticism, and the different schools of Gnosticism as they started to deviate from one another based upon whatever reason. My back is hurting. I gotta